The-Laozi-Story. Confucianism, Taoism, Taoism, and Buddhism generally name the three main currents of Chinese thought, although it should be obvious that, like any ism, they are abstractions. What they name are not monolithic but multifaceted traditions with fuzzy boundaries. In the case of Taoism, it designates both a philosophical tradition and an organized religion, which in modern Chinese are identified separately as Daojia and Daojiao, respectively. With their own rich histories and internal differences, the two are deeply intertwined. Laozi or Lao Chu, in the Wei-Giles system of transliteration, favored by earlier generations of Western scholars, figures centrally in both. Philosophical Taoism traces its origins to Laozi, an extraordinary thinker who flourished during the 6th century B.C., according to Chinese sources. According to some modern scholars, however, Laozi is entirely legendary. There was never a historical Laozi. In religious Taoism, Laozi is revered as a supreme deity. The name Laozi is best taken to mean Old Lao Master Zi, and Laozi, the ancient philosopher, is said to have written a short book, which has come to be called simply the Laozi, after its putative author, a common practice in early China. When the Laozi was recognized as a classic, Jing, that is, accorded canonical status in the classification of Chinese literature. On account of its profound insight and significance, it acquired a more exalted and hermeneutically instructive title, Dao Di Jing Tao Ti Ching, commonly translated as the classic of the way and virtue. Its influence on Chinese culture is pervasive, and it reaches beyond China. It is concerned with the Tao or way and how it finds expression in virtue day, especially through what the text calls naturalness ziren and non-action wu wei. These concepts, however, are open to interpretation. While some interpreters see them as evidence that the Laozi is a deeply spiritual work, others emphasize their contribution to ethics and/or political philosophy. Interpreting the Laozi demands careful hermeneutic reconstruction, which requires both analytic rigor and an informed historical imagination. The Shiji records of the historian by the Han Dynasty 206 B.C.-220 CE, court scribe and historian Sima Qian K. 14586 B.C.E. offers a biography of Laozi. Its reliability has been questioned, but it provides a point of departure for reconstructing the Laozi-Story. Laozi was a native of Chu, according to the Shiji, a southern state in the Zhou dynasty. See map and discussion in Loewe and Shaughnessy, 1999, 594 and 597. His surname was Li, his given name was Ir, and he was also called Dan. Laozi served as a keeper of archival records at the court of Zhou. Confucius 551479 BC. He had consulted him on certain ritual matters, we are told, and praised him lavishly afterward. Shiji 63. This establishes the traditional claim that Laozi was a senior contemporary of Confucius. A meeting or meetings between Confucius and Laozi, identified as Lao Dan, is reported also in the Zhuangzi and other early Chinese sources. Laozi cultivated Tao and virtue, as Sima Qian goes on to relate, and his learning was devoted to self-effacement and not having fame. He lived in Zhou for a long time. Witnessing the decline of Zhou, he departed. When he reached the northwest border, then separating China from the outside world, he met Yin Shi, the official in charge of the border crossing, who asked him to put his teachings into writing. The result was a book consisting of some 5,000 Chinese characters, divided into two parts, which discusses the meaning of Tao and virtue. Thereafter, Laozi left. No one knew where he had gone. This completes the main part of Sima Qian's account. The remainder puts on record attempts to identify the legendary Laozi with certain known historical individuals and concludes with a list of Laozi's purported descendants. C.W. T. Chan 1963, Law 1963, or Henricks 2000 for an English translation. Few scholars today would subscribe fully to the Shiji report. Indeed, according to William Boltz, it contains virtually nothing that is demonstrably factual. We are left no choice but to acknowledge the likely fictional nature of the traditional Laozi figure 1993-270. Disagreements abound on every front, including the name Laozi itself. Although the majority takes Laozi to mean old master, some scholars believe that Lao is a surname. The Zhuangzi and other early texts refer to Lao Dan consistently, but not Lier. The name Dan is generally understood to depict the bearer's long ears, a mark of longevity in Chinese physiognomy. According to Feng Yulan, Sima Qian had confused the legendary Lao Dan with Lier, who flourished later during the Warring States period 480–221 B.C.E. and was the real founder of the Taoist school Daojia 1983–171. In an influential essay, A.C. Graham 1986 argues that the story of Laozi reflects a conflation of different legends. The earliest strand revolved around the meeting of Confucius with Lao Dan and was current by the 4th century B.C.E. During the first half of the 3rd century, Lao Dan was recognized as a great thinker in his own right, and as the founder of a distinct Laoist school of thought. It was not until the Han Dynasty, when the teachings of Laozi, Zhuangzi, and others were seen to share certain insights centering on the concept of Tao, that they were classified together under the rubric of philosophical Taoism. I cite these views here only to give a sense of the diversity and volume of research on the Laozi-Story. It is clear that by 100 B.C.E., if not earlier, Laozi was already shrouded in legends, and that Sima Qian could only exercise his judgment as an historian to put together a report that made sense to him, based on the different and sometimes competing sources at his disposal. The fact that Laozi appears favorably in both Confucian and Taoist sources seems to argue against the likelihood that the figure was fabricated for polemical purposes. It is conceivable that a philosopher known as Lao Dan attracted a following based on his novel reading of The Way and Virtue. Differentially, his followers would refer to him as Laozi. Confucius had sought his advice presumably on mourning and funeral rites, given that the Confucian work Shiji Records of Rites has Confucius citing Lao Dan 4 times specifically on these rites. Indeed, various dates have been proposed for the encounter, for example, 501 B.C.E., following the account in the Zhuangzi Che 14. In any case, testifying to its appeal, different accounts of the meeting circulated among the educated elite during the Warring States period. Other details then came to be associated with Lao Dan, which formed the basis of Sima Qian's reconstruction. Admittedly, this is conjecture, though I find little reason not to accept the traditional claim that Laozi was a senior contemporary of Confucius, the identity of the old master. No doubt will continue to attract and divide scholarly opinion. In many popular accounts, Laozi is described as the founder or father of Taoism. This begs a number of questions and therefore should not be taken uncritically. And this is the reason why a fairly extended discussion of the Shiji Laozi story is offered here. The story of Laozi occupies a cherished place in the Taoist tradition. It is important also because it raises certain hermeneutic expectations and affects the way in which the Laozi is read. If the work was written by a single author, one might expect, for example, a high degree of consistency in style and content. If the Laozi was a work of the 6th or 5th century B.C.E., one might interpret certain sayings in the light of what we know of the period. There is little consensus among scholars, however, on the date or authorship of the Laozi, as we shall see below. With the arrival of the Way of the Celestial Masters, Qian Shidao, the first organized religious Taoist establishment Daojiao in the 2nd century CE, the story of Laozi gained an important hagiographic dimension. The founding of Celestial Master or Heavenly Master. Taoism was based on a new revelation of the Tao by Laozi, on which see Cohn 1998, A and 1998 Billion, Kleeman 2016, and the entry on religious Taoism. In the eyes of the faithful, the Tao is a divine reality, and Laozi is seen as the personification of the Tao. Lao Dan is but one manifestation of the divine Laozi, albeit a pivotal one because of the writing of the Tao Te Ching, which in religious Taoism commands devotion as a foundational scripture that promises not only wisdom but also immortality and salvation to those who submit to its power. During the Tang dynasty 618 to 907 CE, the imperial Lai family traced its ancestry to Laozi. Today, Laozi's birthday is celebrated in many parts of Asia on the 15th day of the second lunar month. The influence of the Laozi on Chinese culture is both deep and far-reaching. One indication of its enduring appeal and hermeneutical openness is the large number of commentaries devoted to it throughout Chinese history, some 700, according to one count W. Tichan 1963, 77. The Laozi has inspired an intellectual movement known as Zhuangzi, learning in the profound or Neo-Taoism, as some scholars prefer, emphasizing its roots in classical Taoism that dominated the Chinese elite or high culture from the 3rd to the 6th century CE. See the entry on Neo-Taoism in this encyclopedia. The Laozi played a significant role in informing not only philosophic thought, but also the development of literature, calligraphy, painting, music, martial arts, and other cultural traditions. Imperial patronage enhanced the prestige of the Laozi and enlarged its scope of influence. In 733 CE, the Emperor Xuanzong decreed that all officials should keep a copy of the Tao Te Ching at home and placed the classic on the list of texts to be examined for the civil service examination, e.g., the report in the official Tang history, Zhu Tang Shu 8. In religious Taoism, recitation of the Tao Te Ching is a prescribed devotional practice and features centrally in ritual performance. The Tao Te Ching has been set to music from an early time. The term Laozi learning Laozi has come to designate an important field of study. A useful work in Chinese that sketches the major landmarks in this development is Zhongguo Laozi Shi, A History of Laozi Learning in China, Shangtiji, et al. 1995, a follow-up effort focusing on Laozi scholarship in the 20th century by the same lead author was published in 2002. The influence of the Laozi extends beyond China, as Taoism reaches across Asia and in the modern period, the Western world. In Hong Kong, Taiwan, and among the Chinese in Southeast Asia and beyond, Taoism is a living tradition. Taoist beliefs and practices have contributed also to the formation of Korean and Japanese culture, although here the process of cultural transmission, assimilation, and transformation is complex, especially given the close interaction among Taoism, Buddhism, and indigenous traditions such as Shinto. Fukui et al. 1983. Vol. 3. During the 7th century, the Laozi was translated into Sanskrit. In the 18th century, a Latin translation was brought to England, after which there has been a steady supply of translations into Western languages, yielding a handsome harvest of some 250 Lafargue and Paz 1998, 277, with new ones still hitting bookstores and internet sites almost every year. Some of the more notable recent translations in English are Roberts 2001, Ivanhoe 2002, Ames and Hall 2003, Wagner 2003, Moeller 2007, Ryden and Penny 2008, and Kim 2012. A forthcoming translation is Minford 2018. Laozi is an axial philosopher whose insight helps shape the course of human development, according to Karl Jaspers 1974. The influence of the Laozi on Western thinkers is the subject of Clark 2000. Memorable phrases from the Laozi, such as governing a large country is like cooking a small fish. 60 have found their way into global political rhetoric. At the popular level, several illustrated or comic versions of the Laozi reach out to a younger and wider readership, e.g., Cai Chi-chung et al. 1995, now available also on YouTube. Some may have come to learn about the Laozi through such best-selling works as The Tao of Physics, Capra 1975, or Tao of Puhoff 1982. And there is also A Taoist Cookbook, Sasso 1994, which comes with meditations from the Tao Te Ching. From nature lovers to management gurus, a growing audience is discovering that the Laozi has something to offer to them. The reception of the Laozi in modern Asia and the West falls outside the scope of this article. Nevertheless, it is important to note that the Laozi should be regarded not only as a work of early Chinese philosophy, but also in a larger context as a classic of world literature with keen contemporary relevance. The next 3 sections are intended for readers who are interested in the textual history and commentarial tradition of the Laozi, including the major manuscripts recovered through archaeological excavations or from the antiquities market. They are important to understanding the Laozi, but one may go directly to Section 5 on the main interpretive approaches to the text if one wishes to bypass them. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us create better content for you. See you in the next video.